"You ready?" Dan asked. "Yeah," I said as I was finished loading the back of the truck. I had only moved into town a year back. It wasn't even something I'd been planning for, but rising housing costs where I grew up made me want to move somewhere rather than going back to crash with my parents. Lo and behold, when I even managed to get a job at a decent company and they offered to help me with moving costs to join one of their branches, here I am. At least, I thought at the time that this was a decent enough company. It was a charity, though I had to admit that at the time I didn't notice that they seemed to have a lot of things for nonprofit. This should have been the first red flag, but I never paid it any mind. "So let's go, rookie," Dan said. Dan was a couple of years older than me, but had been nice enough during orientation and all. Our current job was one that would take us to a city. We were setting up a camp for homeless people. It was a well enough case, though something did weigh in on my mind. "Do we really need to go so far for this?" I asked him again. We were going a pretty long ways off. The trip itself would take 2 days. Granted, we would be paid for all the hours and the company paid for our housing as well, but why go through all that difficulty? A nearby city was just 2 hours off, and it wasn't as if where we were going was much bigger either. It's complicated, but we just want to expand our reach," Dan said, the same as when I had asked him last time about it. "I wouldn't worry too much about it. Let's just focus on getting some of these people the help that they need." He flashed a smile and began talking about football, and I forgot about the question soon enough. The camp as it was went well enough with us doing quite a good job. At least I thought so. It mainly involved giving out clothes and food. It was time for us to leave though, and as we began to get ready to set back, I noticed something. Are we taking some people back with us?" I asked, confused. I hadn't been told anything about this. 3 people, 2 men and a woman, were riding along back with us in the back. "Yeah, they've got some issues which I think we can deal with better back at home," Dan said. "They've all agreed to it, so it's no biggie." I was a bit suspicious now, but when I did talk to them, it was obvious that they were there of their own volition. So I thought, all right. I did notice something was off. The normally extroverted Dan didn't go out of his way to talk too much with the others. It was as if he was actively trying to avoid them for some reason. That said, we were reaching the last leg of our journey. Town was back in sight, though as I was beginning to dream of getting back to my bed, Dan tapped me on the shoulder as we went to a halt. I sat up a little and tried to blink the sleep away. We were practically in the middle of nowhere. "Come on," he whispered to me as he opened the door and beckoned me to step outside. I was confused, but in my drowsy haze, I didn't really think too much about it as I got off. "So what's up?" I asked him. He put a finger to his lips and beckoned me to follow him. Once we were 10 minutes away from the truck, he told me to crouch down. "What's going on?" I asked again. It looked like we were still 2 hours away from the town's border. He put a finger to his lips. "Just stay quiet for now, will ya?" It was then that his head twitched as if he had suddenly seen something. I looked in that direction but spotted nothing, until a minute later when I saw the silhouette of what looked like a dog, or far more likely a wolf, I realized. "What's up with this?" I asked. He put a finger to his lips again and hissed at me. "Don't you know when to keep quiet?" "Well, tell me what's going on," I said. He glared at me but seemed to realize I was only going to make a ruckus if he didn't say something. "You know what a skinwalker is?" he asked. I scratched my head. No. "An urban legend, that's what," Dan said. "At least I thought so. They're kind of like vampires, I guess. They're supposed to be people who betray their families for immortality, walk around wearing the skins of their victims, usually animals. You'll find all sorts of stories about them if you go on the internet. They have other powers too, mimicking voices of their victims, which is especially creepy." He shuddered a bit. "What's this got to do with anything?" I asked. "Long ago, this land used to belong to a Native American tribe," Dan continued. "As you can imagine, they weren't all too happy to give it up when the colonizers arrived. Our side, I guess you could call it, realized they were going to lose when they made a deal with the devil. Or what devils are to people around these parts. They invited some of the natives to a discussion in this area, and then agreed to let the Skinwalkers in. I told you they were like vampires, right? They can't go onto someone's property without an invitation." A bead of sweat rolled down my neck. I looked at the horizon again. There were more wolves now. In exchange for getting rid of the natives, the original founders gave the Skinwalkers blanket permission to wander into town and any house in its territory, Dan said. If they wanted to, they could get into our houses and kill every single one of us. They won't, though, so long as they're fed enough. I then realized why he had brought those people along with him, and why he had gone so far to pick up homeless people, so that little attention would be paid if they were to disappear suddenly one day. But before he could stop me, I was sprinting back towards the truck. "What are you doing? Do you want to get yourself killed?" he screamed behind me. I ignored him and got to the driver's seat, turned the key, thank goodness he left it in the ignition, and began to move the truck to get out of the area as soon as possible. The Skinwalkers were closing in on me, though. They no longer looked like animals now, but the misshapen creatures they really were. I could tell, given the odd way they moved. As I slammed the accelerator, I heard a loud thump on the roof of the truck and then a loud crash to the side of me. One of them had gotten onto the roof and fallen off. I turned my head for a brief second outside the window, and then I saw it. There was a monster running on all fours, somehow keeping up with me even though I must have been going at 60 an hour. It looked like a skeletonized human, kind of like those pictures of people who nearly starved to death turned up to 11, wearing the fur of a wolf on its back. In the rearview mirror, I could see 2 more of them tailing right behind me. I gulped and slammed the accelerator even harder, praying that I would survive this. Eventually, it looked like they had either had enough of chasing me with no result, or I had reached the boundary of whatever limit they could cross. However, it wasn't until the sun came up that I would finally breathe a sigh of relief. I didn't even stop near the closest rest stop, worried that it also fell into the jurisdiction of the Skinwalkers. It was only when it was close to midday and I was nearly falling asleep at the wheel that I stopped and told the others, who were quite confused, to get off. I think I slept for a whole day after that, and I just told the others that it had all been canceled and they could go back. I tried forgetting about the place as much as I could, and for a while, it seemed to have worked. I got a new job. Pay wasn't as good as the earlier one, but had no deals with supernatural creatures either. I even began saving up for a down payment for a house. One day, though, curiosity got the better of me, and I asked around the town. To my surprise, no one seemed to have heard anything about it, or heard from anyone living in it ever since, well, the incident. Anyone who had gone to investigate never returned. It's given me a horrible feeling. Did I end up costing the lives of everyone in that town? Or is it that the Skinwalkers didn't kill everyone there, but simply guard it so that no one could go in or out? I don't know which is worse, but I have no desire to find out. I can't even name the town. I don't want someone out there coming to hunt me in retribution if they have ties to the place. Let me give you a warning, though. I think if you drive close to where I'm talking about, you'll realize what the town's name is. All I can say is, for your own safety, please stay as far away as possible from it. Hello everyone, I'm Giggles, and thank you so much for listening to my narration. A quick shout out to all my patrons: Melissa Perez, Geek Sanctuary, Lawrence Wallen, Andreas Anderson London, Eric Cifuentes, Krzysztof Kozak-Slazak, Jesse Hartley, and Icy Narrates. If you want to become a patron today, you can check out the link in my description below. And as always, thank you so much for your support. I'll see you in the next video.